Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Criterion Learning Series. My name is Steve Tompkins. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect here with Criterion. And today I will be showing you custom fields and custom screens in Criterion and how to set those up. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and switch over to my browser. Okay, so we should see self-service here. I do want to mention that we do have a Q&A and a chat feature. So if you do have any questions, any comments, please feel free to use those and we will try to answer any questions that we can. And let's go ahead and look at this. So of course, custom fields and custom screens are visible in self-service in some instances. However, I'm going to talk about the configuration of them, which will happen either, you can click on any one of these to get to your settings, but I'll go ahead and click on HR. And once we load over here, I'll go to my settings. And the first thing we're going to talk about are custom fields. And to provide some context to that, actually, what I'll do before I go to the settings is I will bring up an employee and I'll talk about different places that we can have custom fields. But you'll see here as an example on the demographics, I have a couple of custom fields down here. Demographic custom field, kind of a generic name there, as well as favorite sports teams. Now, when you're designing a custom field, you do need to take into consideration how is that going to be used? Is it going to be a text field? Is it going to be numeric, possibly a drop-down menu, a date field, or something like that? So you do need to take that into consideration because, for an example, if you're going to have a drop-down menu, you need to create that drop-down menu if it's not one of the standard drop-down menus used in the system. That would actually be done in your code tables. When you go to code tables here, this type right here, there's three options. System is the default one the first time you come here, but you'll see custom is an option right here and user is the other option. User are going to be what I would maybe call your standard code tables. Could be things like department codes, reasons for changing a position, those types of things where you're going to have a variety of drop-down menus throughout the system, and you might have various code tables or codes behind them. So let me show you an example of department. I have a department code and a name for that department and so forth. And I can use these on custom fields and custom screens if I like, but maybe you need to have some values that don't exist in one of those standard user code tables. So you can create as many custom code tables as you might need to do that. And you'll see some examples here of these: bonus type, color, sport, etc. And you can do that. Let me just click on one to give you an example. But when you create one of these, you basically get to set up these things right here. So first off is the name of this. Now, it doesn't need to match the description, but sometimes it's very useful for it to match. But you could use an abbreviation here if you wanted to, or even if you wanted to use a numeric value, you could do that for the name here. The description is what you just saw in that drop-down menu. So t-shirt size. And you'll notice here that once you create it, I can no longer change the name. However, I could change the description if I wanted to do something like that. I could change that description there. And then you'll see attribute 1 to 5, the caption there. So when you're creating the actual codes themselves, you may want to have attributes that are related to that, possibly for reporting purposes, things like that, where you are storing additional things rather than just a code and description. Maybe you need some additional context about what that means for reporting. Typically is where we see that. All right, so once I've created that table, you can now have the values that go in the table. And you'll see I have a couple of them already here, medium and large. And these are just like any other code. When you set them up in the system, you've got a code and a description. And if I had filled in an attribute, I would see it here. So maybe I want to say, I don't know, order number. I don't know. I'm just making something up. Put that right there. And then when I come into here, you'll notice here it is right there. So there's an example of an attribute, just so you can see what that is. Now, with just like the other code tables, if I wanted to change the code or the description, I could do that. And of course, I can have it in other languages. If you needed to put it in Spanish or French or those types of things, you could do that right there. And you'll notice, of course, we have the active flag as well as making it the default value in the drop-down menu if you like. And to add a new one, maybe do S for small. Oops, small. All right. So very simple to be able to add new codes and edit your existing ones. Now, one thing you'll see here is you do have the option to delete. You cannot delete if it's been used. So if you're using this drop-down menu somewhere and you've selected a t-shirt size of large for somebody, as an example, I won't be able to delete it. If I no longer want to use it, I can make it inactive. And that'll make it so I no longer can select it. It won't affect the existing records. It just means the existing records, I would have to, I could change it to medium, and then I would not be able to change it back to large if I ever had to do that. All right, so that's making a custom code table that you may need to use on your custom fields and custom screens. So let's look at custom fields here, which is, you'll notice right here is your custom fields. Now, the first thing you'll see here is it's possible you already have some custom fields that were turned on or set up by implementation when you went through implementation, or maybe you're already using it, somebody else set it up and you now need to use them, or you want to just see what's out there. So they're broken up by different pages, and you'll see I have a variety of pages here, and they're pretty descriptive on what the page actually is. So this is the assignment detail. Think of the position screen. So you might want something on the position screen. On a benefit plan, dependents, the employee record, which is the employment screen, employee additional demographic screen, benefit, employee benefit, employee courses. You'll see as I go down employee demographics, employer position. Oops, I didn't mean to click on that. Position is right up here. Review, T4 form for our Canadian friends, timesheet, and finally workers' compensation. So these are the screens where you can add it. You'll notice not every single screen is here. If, for an example, you say, I'd like to have this on incomes, maybe you want something on payroll incomes, I don't know. You can always come up here and make a request of us to add additional pages here. So you might come up an idea, say, yes, I would like to have this on employee incomes because I need to store some type of value on employee incomes. And so, we'll consider that, and we possibly will add that in there. But that's a great way to get your ideas out into the general audience and for us to review them and add those features as we look forward in our roadmap and projecting forward with the system. So that's how you can do that if there's this page here you don't already see. Now I'm going to just choose employee demographics because that was the screen I showed you earlier. And here you can see those two fields that I just showed earlier. And I can go in here and I can edit these fields. I notice here like a demographic custom field is the name of it. Remember that was the name on that screen. That's the code behind the scenes. It does not need to match the label, but sometimes it makes sense for it to match the label. Here I can make it hidden. So this is very useful if you've already used it. So you can't, get rid of it once you've added it. You want to hide those values in there. Here I can choose to show it in self-service. So I want to show that in self-service on the demographic screen. And I can also make the field required. So very simple settings right there. If I wanted to add a new one, I can go ahead and do that right here. So let's say I wanted to do t-shirt size because that was the code table I selected. So let's go ahead and see how that would work here. Now I'm not going to set up one of each type there, but you'll see the different data types. A checkbox, that's going to be just like this, is a checkbox right there. Currency, so you're expected to put in an amount that's not just a number, but perhaps using dollars or euros or something like that. You want to put in a currency amount. A date field. The date field also includes a little calendar option, so they can click a calendar when you're filling in the values. The drop-down would be from those custom drop-downs or even the user drop-downs. A formula, so you can do simple arithmetic things here. So maybe you need to take the pay rate times a certain factor to get some billable rate. I don't know. You could use a formula for that. A memo field, which is just basically a big text field. So a text field is, typically one line, but a memo field might be several lines. Perhaps you need some type of notes. Number field, so that's just any type of number, not necessarily, let's say, dollar amounts or currency. It's just a number. And then finally, but not last, is a text. So you just need some text to type in something. I'm going to choose that drop down just to show you right here. So first off is the code that I'm going to come up with. I'll call this a t-shirt size to kind of match that drop-down menu and a label. This can be the same, could be different. And then because I chose the drop-down, I now get to choose the code table that it's related to. And you'll see we have a lot of them out here. They are either system, user, custom code tables. So I can just scroll down and I should see t-shirt in here somewhere. There it is. There's my t-shirt size. Okay, and then as I just mentioned, we've got those options to make it hidden, which I'm not sure why you would do that while you're setting it up, but perhaps you're not ready to use it quite yet. So you make it hidden, and then when you're ready, you come and unhide it. I can show it in self-service if I like here, and I can also make it required. So I'll go ahead and just do show in self-service just to show you what that looks like. And I hit save. Now, when I'm here, you'll notice from this list, I can rearrange them. So you may remember when I was looking at demographics previously, the demographic custom field was the first one, and then the sports was to the right. If I continue, that fashion t-shirt will be underneath the demographics because we show 2 columns. And then if I add others, they'll just kind of go left to right down the list here. And if I want to rearrange them, I can do that like this. Just hit the little arrow here to move it up. And now, for an example, this will be the first field. And then demographics will be next to it, and favorite sports team will be underneath it. Here you'll see I can delete it. If I've never stored any values in it before, I can delete it. So maybe this demographics one, I haven't stored any values, I would be able to delete it. But here you'll see because I've used it, I cannot. So that would require me to go and clear out all the existing values before I delete it if I really wanted to completely get rid of it. If instead I said, you know what, I just don't need it anymore, I'm going to go ahead and hide it. So that might be a better way of handling that situation. You'll notice how it's no longer here. And if I want to see it, just toggle that to turn it on. All right, so that's an example right there of how you create a custom field. And remember, I said it was available in self-service. So the best way to make sure you can see it is to always refresh. And the reason we do that is it might be you're on that particular screen and the screen doesn't update in real time and suddenly that field shows up. You do need to refresh so the system knows, here are the new fields. But when I scroll down, there's the t-shirt. And because it's available in self-service, I am able to update this and say I wear a large as an example. And then I can submit this change. Now this, if I did have a workflow for demographics, it would follow that workflow to get approved that I put in the t-shirt menu. So just like any other field on demographics, if I put in my middle name or something like that, it would update that. So depending on, I don't remember if I have it looks like I do not have a workflow, so it was immediately updated there. And then of course, if I go to employees, and you'll see there's t-shirt, and if I go to Ted, I'll see that new value there. There's large. So you can see very easy to add those. And of course, as I mentioned, going back into those settings, there's many different screens where I can add these fields. And what I would suggest is if you do have the sandbox, you go ahead and add it in the sandbox, see what it looks like first before you just start rolling it out to live. You can, make sure it's exactly what you want. Maybe have somebody else take a look at it just in case there's a misspelling or maybe it just looks a little bit strange. You can obviously look at that in the sandbox before you bring it into live. But of course, you could go right into live, but then maybe you hide it and only turn it on for a short period of time so somebody can look at it, and then you re-hide it. That's custom fields. Let's look at custom screens. And I'm going to talk about some of these other things here, custom localizations, if I get a chance. We'll talk about that very quickly. But custom screens. So this allows you to create an entire screen that doesn't exist already in the system. So you might need to track some information. You don't want to create a bunch of custom screens to do it custom fields, just because it might be a lot. What if you need to track 10 pieces of information and it's not really related to the position or to the demographics or something like that? So it might make sense to create an entire custom screen for that. And as you can see, I have some already created. In fact, I don't have any inactive right now, but I've created some already. All right, so let's go over how that works here. So I'll go ahead and just add a new one. Okay, now when I create a new one, of course, the name does need to be unique, or I should say, the code needs to be unique. And so you can, do whatever you like there. I'm going to make one, I'm just going to call it bonus. All right, and I'm going to call this one bonus too. I'm going to match up the name and the code, but just as I mentioned before, it doesn't need a match. All right, menu location. So this determines where it's visible. HR would be right where we're at right now. I go to employees and I can see this new screen once I'm done creating and publishing it. Self-service means I can go over to self-service and I can see it over there as the employee. So I can see my bonus screen as an employee. And then team would mean the manager would be able to see it. So it would actually say team bonus and it would be visible to the manager. And you can mix and match. Maybe you want an HR and self-service, but not team because it's not for the manager to see. Or maybe it's HR and team and not the employee. You can do it something like that. All right. Of course, you could do all three. You could do one of them. It's just whatever you like it to do. All right. Here determines where it's going to be. This is the menu item. So you'll think of it. Let me show you as an example. We have these options: pay, benefits, learning, and personal information. Let me click on an employee. We got pay, benefits. This is the personal information. I always forget the fourth one. And learning. So it'd be done under education and skills. So that's where it can show up. You could determine, like here, you'll see vaccinations and sports are right here. Those are two custom screens I've created. I don't know where the other one is. Benefits. All right. So you can see how that would show up. It just goes to the bottom of the list there. And when I create that, so let's just make this pay one because it's bonuses. Kind of makes sense here. Here you'll notice I can show this over on the candidate if it makes sense. So that would mean that when I go into recruiting and I'm looking at a candidate, it would have this custom screen available to me to use. Maybe not for bonus, but perhaps there's something else you want to use. All right. And then here you'll notice I can have workflow approvals for adding or changing records in this screen if I want to. So I'll go ahead and select this one. All right. Then you're given two options here for adding fields to this new custom screen. One is a field, and I'll show you what that means. And the other one is a table field, which is kind of like a sub field to the fields here. And I'll show you what I mean here. So let me just show you an example. I'm going to call this one bonus date. Oops. As you can tell, I'm having some issues typing today. Bonus date, and this is going to be a date field. Make it required. All right. Here you'll see, of course, required means I must fill it in if I come to this screen and I'm adding a record. And then active, of course, that means I can view the field. So I'd want it to be active probably, but possibly want to turn it off. Action date. So this could mean you want a notification to go out based off of something that's here. So notify X number of days before that particular bonus date or after that date. Or I could just say notify on a particular date. So notify on August 1st or something like that. So you can have notifications going out if you need to, but I'm going to do bonus date, and probably would have been a good idea maybe to do a bonus reason, but I'm going to go ahead and just make it a text field, but it could be a drop down. So I'm going to call this bonus reason. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just call this text field. You'll see the same options are here. There's one additional one or two additional ones here that are not available in the standard fields. File attachment. So maybe there's a PDF or an email or something you want to attach, you can do that. And standard. So these are your standard fields that are available throughout the system. There's a number of them here from like the demographics and their position screen and stuff. So I can grab these fields if I need to for this screen. This is really useful. Let's say you wanted to make a screen that had things from their address and their pay rate and other things like that you wanted to put together into one screen. They're not all in one screen normally, but you want to throw together the address, the birth date, the employee number, and it looks like there's a lot of different ones. Their marital status, just a variety of fields from a bunch of different screens. You could do that. It really could be useful, let's say, for a verification of employment person who's in charge of that. You might even make a screen for them that they only get access to that screen in HR, and it has exactly the fields that they would need to do that verification of employment. So that's what the standard fields are. And then the other one I actually just noticed here is multi-selection. That's not available in the standard. We only have drop-down available, but multi-selection, I forgot, that's the third option that's not available in the standard custom fields. I'm going to make this one just a text field. When I choose something like a text or number, I am given like a maximum length. So I'm going to have them type in a note. I'm going to say they could be kind of verbose there, 200 characters. And here I can actually have it formatted in a certain way if I wanted to. Doesn't make sense for this. I'm just typing a note, but I might want it in there. And I'll go ahead and make this a requirement. Okay, I'm going to add some table fields just so you can see what this looks like. I'm going to say pay date. So this will be another date field. And I'm going to say employee notified. I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm just thinking of some things that might want to be on a bonus field. This will be a checkbox. All right. Just to show what that looks like. So you can add as many fields as you like. If you wanted like 15 different fields or something, you could certainly have a very big custom screen in here, as well as a lot of table fields. You'll see what that's going to look like here in a moment. And I'll go ahead and save this when I'm done. Now, one thing you'll see here is this is not going to be available immediately. We have an option to publish it, which means, make it visible to people. So it's actually kind of a two-stage thing here, because we realize that sometimes you're creating something, you're not ready for it to be visible immediately. Rather than make it inactive, you can publish it. And so to do that, you go back in and you hit publish. All right, so I have that out there on pay. So let's look at that, where that's going to be. First off, remember, I have to refresh because I'm already in here. So I have to refresh to see it, but now it'll be available under payroll is bonus. Okay. Here are those two fields. Let me kind of go back and show you. Those two fields, bonus date and bonus reason. You'll see those right there. All right, they're kind of the header of this record. And then here are those table fields underneath. You don't have to put table fields, but it could be used for additional information where maybe you need to have like follow-up notes or something like that. And you want to have like a note date and a note and things, those types of things. So I'm just going to say the bonus date is today, and merit bonus is the reason. And then I want to put something down here to reflect the pay date that I want it paid. I don't know why I might do this, but let's just say it's going to be the 25th. And I did notify the employee. All right, so you can kind of see how that works together. Of course, I could have a separate one. Maybe I have like an amount up here and I say like the amount per payroll and I break it all down or something like that. So there's certainly a lot of more I could have added into here, but just for simplicity, I did this. All right, so now that's here. So very simple to do that. I also made it available in self-service. So if I come out here to self-service and I go to my payroll screen, there's bonus. Now, because I'm a manager, there's team bonus. All right, but here's my bonus screen. And oh, I put it on? I don't think I put it on myself. I put it on this person. So let's see if Michael reports to me. I'd be able to see his record if he does. It looks like he may not. Okay, he doesn't report to me. Unfortunately, maybe I don't have anybody reporting to me. I don't remember. But anyways, if I had a record on my own, I would have been able to see the same fields. And you'll see here, I actually have the system allowing me to make a change here, so I could add something. Probably when I want to do this, you may want to have like a workflow in here so that if I were to add this, it has to go through some type of approval. So I don't just randomly add a bonus to myself and go, hey, where's my $10,000 bonus? And, people complain. So you can make it so it requires a change and things like that if you want to. Or maybe you don't show it out here at all and it just stays within HR. So let's quickly, in the last few minutes here, talk about reporting on this information. And I'll talk then about a little bit on the custom localization and custom reports. But quickly, I want to go into the data grid. Once you make a custom field or a custom screen, you may want to report on that information. So the custom screens actually become something you can grab right here. When I create a new data grid, I can go to custom screen, and then there's that screen I just created as well as my other ones. Okay, and here are the fields. These are the 4 fields I created, and I can add them in. You'll see here when I click on next to actually view the data, it will pull in the name, the number, and the location, as well as the values that are stored there. All right, and then of course I can save this, I can export it out to Excel, I can use the task scheduler to run it, I can go out to CSV. So I might want to save this and call this employee bonus as an example. This is a feature we added last release called report category, and you could create categories for your reports. Maybe you want to categorize payroll, HR, benefits, et cetera, reports. So I could add one here maybe for payroll and have that category. Let me just show you how you can do that real quick. Anytime you see this blue gear, you can actually add a code or edit existing codes. So I'm just going to add one called payroll. Okay. And I'll save that. And now it's going to be available for me to use in a dropdown. So I can go ahead and choose payroll. So now it's categorized that way. And of course, here you'll see I can look at payroll or I can look at all of them. So you may want to, if you're looking at this, here you'll see that category. You may want to go through existing data grids and categorize those. So as part of the custom reports, the data grids. Now, if you wanted a report maybe to show up in one of these menus, that would require the creation of a Pentaho report, which are what's used to create reports here. That's a lot more advanced than we're going to cover in the next 5 minutes. But it's something that we could report on if we needed to. So if you need to create a report, you want it to be one of these reports that's up here versus a data grid, reach out to support. We might need to engage in with implementation or a report writer team to do that. If you know how to use Pentaho, which I know we have some people who are partners and or clients who know how to use Pentaho, you can get to that and make a report if you needed to. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that are listed here under custom. First one is going to be custom localization. You may already have some of these set up, just like you may have had custom fields set up. You may have localizations set up. But what this is for is to rename fields within the system here. So you'll see as an example, tobacco user, that's a checkbox on the advanced profile, I believe, or additional demographics. And here you'll see it says wellness plan, because that's what I called it right here. And then generate ACH I've renamed as this. So this is what you can do. You can go to a screen and let's say I want to rename former name to something else. Let's call it prior name. So I need to have the exact name of the field. If I misspelled it or I didn't include the entire description, it's not going to find it to be able to change that. But if I do match it up, I can do this. Now, if you have multiple employers, you can say this only applies to one or, whatever employer. If I've got 5 of them, maybe it only applies to 2 of them or something like that. And of course, I could say, oh, this is the translation into Spanish. I don't know what it might be, but here's a translation into Spanish for that field. So I can do that right there. All right, and I'll go ahead and hit save. So there it is. Now it doesn't, again, immediately show. I have to refresh. And now it says prior name. So this allows you to go to any screen. Maybe there's something on the position screen or the benefits or whatever, and you want to rename that. That's how you can rename those fields. It's a way of customizing the system for yourself. Be careful though, because people might be expecting it to say one thing, and if you change it in here in your settings, that's going to be shown in self-service. It's going to be, anywhere else that field is, you might, not consider that you're renaming it. So be specific in here. Don't just say like anytime it says the word name. So that might be a little bit strange, but that's how you can do that. All right, so that's a great example of custom localizations there. Let me talk very quickly about custom reports. This is one that does get very specific because this is something where you can add custom reports for lots of different types of things, and you're probably going to be working with support or implementation on that. But I'd like to just talk about these things. You'll see things, let's say you need a custom check format. There's a custom report that was created for you, something for a pay stub, even a carrier connection. This is where these reside. I'm only showing this because some people ask, what is custom reports? How do I get those in there? So a Pentaho report, for an example, that would add the reports up in the top. It's not a data grid. It's one of the regular reports, but it's your own version of it. And so you may have one out there. You want to choose which group it goes into, the various groups for reports that are out there, like benefits and so forth. The name of the reports, I don't have one I'm going to upload, but sample name. And then what we would do is if we're helping you out with this, we probably would add it ourselves, but we might send you the report file and the options file, and you just add them in. All right, so you browse out to wherever you have that, and you go and you add that report in. I don't have one off the top of my head that I can add in, but there's a report and there's an options file. Okay, and then it gets added into the system there. And that what that means is that if you go back to your reports and I went to benefits, I would see it here, whatever I called it, it would have a little star next to it. Let me know that it's a custom report. So these are the standard ones. The custom would have a little star on it right there. Finally, just to talk about custom field formats. I can add formats in here for different types of fields. So if I want to enforce the format for a field, that's what this would allow me to do. You may have seen that when I was setting up a custom field, I can format it like a social security number or SIN. I think there were some other formats there, postal, I think zip code and postal code were in there, but it allows me to do that. All right, so that's really the kind of the big customizations here within the system. The two that we really focused on were custom fields and custom screens. So thank you for joining us. I think I saw some questions come through. They got answered. So appreciate any questions that were sent in. If you do have any additional questions, you could always go to the help on the custom fields or custom screens, and that's going to give you pretty good guidance on how this all works. And then if you do have, continue help, of course, we'll have this video out there. You can go back and revisit the video, but help at criterionhcm.com. Here's our number. You can submit a ticket right through here. And of course, if you're working with a partner, you can have the partner help you out. They can, maybe they can create custom screens and fields for you if you're having a little confusion on that. All right. So last but not least, let's look at our upcoming schedule. And here we go. So in a couple of weeks, on the 31st of July, we're going to be talking about leave of absence. We've made a number of changes since the last time we talked about this. And so I want to make sure that we revisit this and talk about the latest and greatest version of leave of absence in the system and how that all works. So that'll be on the 31st. And then 2 weeks after that, one of our new features that we're actually going to be talking about tomorrow. So if you haven't registered for our release webinar tomorrow, please do so. Or you can reach out to support. We can send you the link and so forth. We should have reached out to everybody that we have their contact information on. But we have a webinar tomorrow to talk about our R2 release that's coming out very shortly. And that includes 9-box grids. So we're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks here, well, about a month now, and how that works with the succession planning and so forth. So we'll talk about it tomorrow, tease it a little bit, show very quickly, and then go in depth in a few weeks here. And then something we haven't covered before, I have it as salary grades, but also salary steps. We'll talk about how that works within the system. And so that'll be at the end of August. And amazing to think that it's almost the end of August. So appreciate you joining us today. As always, if you need to reach out to support, help at criterionhcm.com is the best way to reach us. If you are working with a partner, their help desk email, I don't have everybody's help desk email, but this is ours. And you have your partner working with you. They can help you out. And otherwise, I hope to see you all again in a couple of weeks. And thank you again for joining.